guys? So, of course, today I'm going to give you a couple of, I don't know, I think they're like handy dandy tips, really, more than anything. Like one of the things that I see that comes up from time to time, I just recently discussed like bear trap with people, which, in case you're really confused, like, what am I supposed to do with bear trap? Like, literally, all you're going to do when bear trap is in action, right? Your combination, I was showing you earlier, like, I tried to do it in a short, but it didn't really work. But I was like, if you're starting out, right, you're gonna even out. You're gonna pretty much go even when you're starting out. But late game, what you do is you don't really want to do even, right? Like, what you wind up doing is something akin to, like, heck, I've seen people do like 1-1, and then they go 98% marksman. The idea is exactly the same, though. It's that you're blasting, and so a lot of them don't do anything close to 1%. What they'll do is they'll actually do like closer to, I would say, about 80, and so they'll do 10-10-80 is a really common deployment, and so if you were to blend that out, the biggest issue is, do you have enough marksmen to do that? Now, the other problem, and this is the other issue that a lot of people were quick to point out, hello, heroes. And that's another valid argument when talking about your, as far as like what you're supposed to use here. Now, if you're wondering, like, what heroes, what am I supposed to be doing? How am I supposed to know which to use? Whatever, vice versa. Honestly, if I would think that people would pick up on the fact that, like, Jesse's, going to increase damage dealt, right? Okay, that makes sense. So why would you use Jesse? Well, because you're trying to increase the amount of damage you're doing. And then, of course, you get to thinking, well, then what about Jasser? Well, conveniently, Jasser is, what do you know, doing the same thing. I wonder why people might recommend Jesse and Jasser. That'd be why. Now, again, the key element here is that is the very first skill in their roster, okay? Now, later game, you'll see that, oh, hey, what do you know? Geronimo, 25%. Same concept, same everything, okay? You see there's a prevailing theme here. Now, of course, later and later and later, and again, this really depends on where you are in the game, and state-wise, whether you're free-to-play, long-term, vice versa. There's also different tiers to this, right? That is to say, like, if you've gotten to where I'm at in the game, okay, yeah, we have increased attack by 25% and increased damage dealt by lancers and infantry, and then we have an increased damage dealt for all troops for 2 turns every 4 turns. This is handy if you're, like, joining the lead rally, but that's not very helpful if you're joining someone's rally, because, again, going back to the fact that the very top skill is really all of you're going to add to that rally. And you'll notice there's not very many options here, like, that are going to do anything similar. You'll notice that, like, every once in a while you'll have options like, increased damage dealt, enemy damage taken. That for example in Mia would probably be handy. If you look at, like, somebody like damage up, yeah, that's going to be helpful. But again, looking at where, here we're increasing damage dealt and increasing the damage that you're actually doing, you get kind of the prevailing theme here, I guess, is what I'm trying to get at. You're always increasing the damage dealt, in the case of Greg, and so on and so on. Right? These are heroes that you want to contribute into the bear rally. Now, the overarching logic is anything that's going to increase lethality and as a marksman is probably going to do more damage on the bear. And that's really about all you need to know on that front. The second tip is actually in regards to the Alliance Showdown. One of the things that I think a lot of people kind of just, I don't know if they really ignore it so much as they don't pay enough attention to it, but you'll notice that you get about 18,000 or so points at stage 2. I don't know why it is that people don't pay attention to this kind of stuff, but, like, you need to be paying attention to what the current phase is in the showdown and make sure you're ready and saved. I've always told people that, you need to be saving your speeds, save your crystals, and be ready for when the event actually comes around. Because then what you can do is you can turn around, use those speed ups, use those upgrades, and you can turn around and basically go about getting all the extra loot, that you would get otherwise. So like right now, I could just go ahead, burn the speed ups on this, and you'd be thinking, well, hold on, what else can I get? You got to look at it from the standpoint that, okay, if you, say, upgrade a building, or if you use speed ups, for construction, you're going to get points in armament competition. So you're also kind of doing quasi events at the same time. You'll also notice you get points here for construction as well. But because you've already got the last rank in here, now you're only contributing points really for your alliance in the event. So you also have to kind of consider, is that actually going to be the best thing for me? And of course now, like, we have Foundry coming up, and again, logic with Foundry is about as straightforward as it gets. And Vision of Dawn, I mean, when you have this event, you're just gonna basically do all the mini ups that you can do. Like, for example, here it wants you to do 30 of these. Well, I just happen to have 119 of them, so I'm just gonna go ahead and we're gonna open 30 of these, and we're not gonna go overboard. I know a lot of people would be like, but dude, you got 110, go ahead and use all of them. You could do that, but the reason I save them is so that way when I have the next Vision of Dawn and the next quest resets, guess what? I can do it again. And I'm going to get all of those fire crystals and the shards and all the extra loot that comes along with it. So there's more than one reason not to do that. I would say about my only other tip is, I know that some of you have probably seen or heard about Frost Dragon Tyrant. I haven't been doing a lot of PvP in quite a while, but I am going to start poking around and actually see what it was going to take to really get there to where you're actually competitive. So right now what I'm doing, in case you're wondering, like, what exactly should you focus on and PvP and what have you, I mean, the logic is always still really kind of the same. You want to get your empowerment stats, and if you're wondering, well, how do I get those? Well, you got to basically go about collecting as much enhancement XP as you can get. And while you're also doing that, you also have to get Mithril to be able to do those upgrades, as well as get the actual mythic gear to do it. So you got kind of two things going against you at the same time. One of the things that I actually did not that long ago is, again, going back to the shops, is picking up Mithril over in the arena and then going into the VIP shop. And, once in a while, it may not hurt to pick up like some of these deployment capacity boosts. But more than anything, in here you can actually acquire enhancement XPs. So I'm now regularly every day picking these up, so that way I can actually work my way up. And yes, conveniently, if you're wondering what I'm going to use my arsenal tokens on, I'm actually going to be using them on enhancement XP from this point forward. And I'm picking it up as much as I can and where I can get it, because ultimately, even in Canyon, because what I'm going to end up doing is, I was telling you guys, like, oh, just pick it up in Mithril. I've decided I can afford to just kind of go ahead and pick up these other gear pieces, because I think there's just enough moonstone around, or moonstone, the gemstone, that is, the glowstones. There's enough glowstone that you're not going to run out, I don't think, really easily anyway, when trying to get Mithril and everything. It's just, like, it's really hard to run out of it. So for that reason, I'm just using it to go ahead and upgrade my gear passively anyway. Now in Arena, again, just looking at the lineups, I'm not too crazy about, like, picky about how these are set up. But you'll notice that the way I set mine up is I have an infantry, 2 marksman, and 2 lancer. Where this guy has 2 infantry, 2 marksmen, and 1 lancer. And you may be thinking, well, hold on, that's not very wise, because if you run into this, and you run into infantry, right, you're going to wind up dying. And you would be right for thinking that, because now if I compare and contrast and do the same thing and hit it, it ends up being just fine. But now if I quick deploy, conveniently, what does quick deploy want to do? It wants to switch it over. and it wants to move it over here. And, you know, again, that works out fine because it's not a 2 infantry front. When it's 2 infantry, you don't want the lancers out in front because you're basically going to get a 10x drop on your bet if you do it that way. Okay, I stress that because you don't want to find yourself kind of kicking yourself. So like here, 2 infantry, again, I would pick whatever infantry you've got and best in slot because that's going to help out in the long run. Now like here, again, same idea. Now this one here is Lancer, and this is where you can either kind of choose how you want to play this, or you can just go ahead and use what you know to be advantageous. But this is ultimately kind of what I think is the strategy. Now like here, we're getting to where people are like, yeah, they're in the 20 mil power range and you've only got 13 mil. So you kind of wind up having to kind of refresh around to try and get the right people, because eventually you do get capped by power in this game. You can't very easily get to the very, very tippity top without, like, you know, having a little bit of a struggle along the way. But like here, I'm going to be okay, I think. And it's, you know, it's just a question of how much further can you go. But heck, your top 7. Now, of course, like here, I can go ahead and probably switch this back out, and it'll be okay. I don't think it'll do that bad. You know, there are a couple of people that are like 20, 30 mil. And again, if you're wondering, like, why are they 20 or 30 mil? A lot of the time it's because, like in this guy's case, he's got a full set of gear, but he just has these heroes maxed out. And he just happens to have one of the newer heroes maxed out. You know, which, that's money. Money. Like, anytime I look at this and I go, well, why is that? It's usually money. And you can see their gear is up quite a ways, and that's all due to having XP and getting the exclusives all the way maxed out. Like, that's how you get to those points. But at the same token, I mean, I've got my chief gear up quite a ways, and it's not by any means perfect, but, you know, I'm doing better in chief gear than I think a lot of players are. So I've got that going for me, but it's just one of those things that I've also got, you know, a bunch of skins here that I've been stacking. And unlike some people, I have not been using them. And the idea is I'm going to use them and I'll get all those little bonuses one of these days, and it'll kind of catch people by surprise. So that'll be kind of a fun thing to do. But, and again, you know, of course we had some avatar frames. If you had the opportunity to pick them up, then great. But other than that, guys, that is pretty much it. I mean, that's all you really need to know as far as making sure that you're getting ahead and be, you know, in arena, obviously picking up everything in the dock. I will say that in my experience, rather than go down the War Academy path where you get to T11, I've actually been transitioning a lot of my effort towards just getting furnace level upgrades, because at this point it makes more sense and it's not an easy task. This upgrade here for the Lancer camp is more for, you know, just the simplistic aspect of it. Like, if I go ahead and upgrade it, which I can, you know, and I can pretty much go ahead and upgrade, you'll notice that the next 2 upgrades, I still have to get another 90 or so on the crystals. And that's a bummer, but, you know, it's like one of those things that you can't really rush it, and you may be tempted to spend your way through and go to the deals tab and, like, try and buy up your excess fire crystals this way. But like I was explaining to you guys during, like, crystal reactivation, it makes more sense to kind of get involved in it then than it is to, like, try and rush it. You can go in here, for example, and for like $100, you can buy 1,500 fire crystals with fire, you know, mix and match. You know, it is what it is, but, you know, even if you were going on the cheaper end of things, you know, compared to the normal packs, you're looking at, for a measly $5, you're going to get about 90. You know, it's still not bad. These mix and match packs and stuff like that show up, those are a lot better off than, like, going into the regular packs and grabbing 5 for 15. Like, that's just a stupid kind of money spent. And even at 20 and 5, I mean, even that doesn't really make any sense. Like that, I would ignore, if you ask me. You know, about the only thing that I think is worthwhile is the daily deals. At least this makes sense, because you're going to get some crystals, but then you're getting some shards out of it, and you're actually getting, like, say, like Edith upgraded. Like, that makes sense, but in any case, that's just my 2 cents. In any case, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.